All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a presentation entitled The Bangor and Aroostook That I Never Saw, largely because I never saw it. And to do the introduction somewhat over, I have been doing photography for 20 years as of this year, celebrated my 20th, anniversary on June 3rd. I started when the Bangor and Aroostook's bankruptcy was made public. The news item hit the local Channel 2 news, and that was what prompted me to start. I wrote the first and only book on the Belfast and Moosehead Lake, which was published in 2017 to coincide with the 150th anniversary. And after that, in 2018, I have been publishing, since 2018, I have been publishing new issues of the Mainline, which is the Bangor and Aroostook's employee magazine, reborn as a historical e-magazine. So to discuss that, to date, 15 issues plus one April Fool's joke have been produced. I personally think the April Fool's joke is quite funny, which is why it's up there. And all of them are free on the Mainline website, which is mainlinemagazine.joeykelleyphoto.com. If you Google Mainline with the E magazine, you should find it. If you drop the E, you will get something completely different, FYI. A 16th issue is scheduled to be released this month, but as it hasn't been released since the 21st of the month, it might wait until October. We'll see. So a few facts about the Bangor and Aroostook for those that are not entirely, for those of you that aren't gerrymandered, how's that? Operated from 1891 to 2003. The predecessor was the Bangor and Piscataquis, and the successor was the Montreal, Maine, and Atlantic. There were 616 route miles in 1930 and 433 in 2000. And at the time of its sale in 2003 was one of only two railroads in the state of Maine operating under its original chartered name. This is a segment of a map from 1895 showing the Bangor and Aroostook on the southern end in its form at the time. What is interesting about it is that although the Bangor-Piscataquis route to Greenville is already in place in this map, the original routing of the Bangor Piscataquis is still extant in that the line comes south through Alton, through Pea Cove, into Old Town, and into Orono, and into Bangor along the waterfront from the northeast. That would, of course, be changed, and Northern Main Junction would be established sometime off to the west in Herman. Speaking of which, the map on the left comes to us from a route card from 1972. What's interesting about that fact is that the Greenville branch from Derby to Greenville, right here, the branch from Greenville to, or from Derby to Greenville was taken up in 1964 and 1965. So why it's still listed on a route card that is very clearly labeled in the back of it 1972, I have no idea. But this is the mature, so to speak, Bangor and Aroostook Railroad as most of us remember it. The Medford cutoff from south of Grange to west of Boyce through Medford. The Patton branch from Patton Junction to Patton. The main line coming out of Oakfield through Holton up to Fair, on through into Presque Isle, Caribou, Stockholm, Van Buren, up over the loop to Fort Kent, through Madawaska, and the branch to St. Francis, and the secondary main from Fort Kent to Squapan, from Squapan to Oakfield, and the Mapleton cutoff, which ran from Squapan to Mapleton Junction, which then ran on to Stockholm or across to Presque Isle. That is sort of the mature 633 route mile version. If we look on the map on the right, this is the same map where I've gone through, but I've deleted everything that was taken out by the time the railroad was sold, or more accurately, abandoned by the 1980s. And what you'll find is that Aroostook County is much reduced in its service. There's nothing to Holton except for Holton becoming the stub of a branch out of Oakfield. The main line has been turned from the primary main to the secondary main through Squaw Pan and up through Fort Kent. And Stockholm is completely cut off at this point. And the only way to get to Easton and Fort Fairfield now is via Presque Isle, through Squaw Pan, through Mapleton. And that is largely how it remains to this day. Technically, the branch to Limestone is still there, and technically the branch to Fort Fairfield is still there. They just aren't used. The branch to St. Francis is long gone, and the Patton branch along with the Medford cutoff, completely gone. All of those now, by the way, are rail trails. As we get on to the presentation, I need to give a huge shout out to the following people: Sean Duran, Matt Sawyer. They have both offered their collections. You're going to see portions of those collections tonight. The Bangor and Aroostook Marketing Department, rest in peace, and the Bangor and Aroostook's employees, many of whom you're going to see pictures of. So this may be the oldest photo in the collection. This is actually the Bangor and Piscataquis station. Before it became the Bangor and Aroostook. This is Bangor. This is what is sometimes referred to as the old Union Station, although I'm not actually sure how accurate that is. The building itself is long gone, and this photo dates from sometime before 1891 when the Bangor and Aroostook was incorporated. Speaking of Bangor, here is the Bangor Yard. Roughly speaking, this is a view where you can stand today. We are looking at Brewer across the Penobscot River. However, for most of what we all remember, this would be the Maine Central's territory exclusively. At this time, it is both the Bangor and Piscataquis, or Bangor and Aroostook if we're after 1891, and the Maine Central. You'll note that there are actually two roundhouses and two turntables, one here in the foreground and one in the background in the distance. Back there. Whoop. Back there. Not sure, honestly, which is which, but I would presume that this is probably the Bangor and Piscataquis closer to. This is definitely from the early days of the Bangor and Aroostook. This is from 1902 and is somewhere up north, looking at, I believe this was captioned as a northbound work train and a southbound passenger train. But as you can see, things are still very much in construction, even in 1902. We've got work trains of ballast and gravel going places for fill, and that whole long line of cars has actually what looks like bunk cars on the very far end of it. This next picture, we have a little bit more information on. This is actually in New Sweden. We don't have a good date for it, but if we get in here real close, we can see that we have two things that sort of allow us to date this. We have the old arch bar style trucks, very short wooden box cars, and perhaps the most telling, this is the old B&A script logo that is very rare outside of the actual literature of the time. And I apologize, it is a kind of a cruddy look at it. Let me show you a slightly better one. That's a slightly better version of that logo. And that is what is referred to as the B&A script logo. And as you can see, it is on the boxcars off to the right. Boom, right there, white on black. So we move forward from New Sweden. We move to 1902 again. In case you ever wondered how bridges were put together before the advent of large hydraulic cranes, you're looking at it. Block and tackle and a bunch of men in the cold. That's how it was done. Around 1900 sometime. Not a car in sight. So course, the Bangor and Aroostook had steam locomotives. This is number 91. I don't have a good date for it, but it's listed. The caption says after rebuild. We'll note that it has a very shiny metal cab and a very shiny tender and whatnot. So the Belfast and Moosehead Lake, sold secondhand. Speaking of steam locomotives, the 482 mountain types were some of the largest ones on the property. These 100 class were very well thought of. This is probably at Northern Main Junction, and it gives you an excellent look at the horizontal, not vertical, cow catcher that the Bangor and Aroostook favored. Instead of being vertical, it has these horizontal ribs. And the reason we know this is Northern Main Junction is this is probably the Main Central's telegraph poles. They were much higher in the background, sort of a spotting feature for Bangor and Aroostook photos. Speaking of steam, this is a wonderful, nicely proportioned Pacific 252. Not sure where this is. It could be Millinocket, taken by a gentleman by the name of Paul R. Douglas. Okay, then the recording goes again. Now, of course, we can't talk about the Bangor and Aroostook Railroad without talking about refrigerated boxcars and without talking about potatoes. So here is one of the few images I have in the collection of the Maine Potatoes original style refrigerated wood-sided boxcar. And as you can see, at this time, this was sort of a much more conservative version of what we all know of the red, white, and blue boxcar. The Maine Potatoes is a stylized potato and whatnot. This is from the date on the side. This is when repainted in August of 1950. The cars are, of course, much older than that. And we move up to Van Buren on March 2nd, 1934. The winter of 33-34 was fairly heavy. And as you can see, there's been enough snow coming off of those potato houses to bury the boxcars next to them. That's a considerable amount of snow, and I'm glad we don't have that anymore. Skipping forward again in time, this is the 500, one of the 600s, and probably the 501. And this is believed to be 1947 and probably the day that they arrived on the property. Probably. There isn't a scratch on them. There's been no modifications yet, and they're extremely clean. And this is the track at Northern Main Junction where, if someone were going to drop one's new locomotives, very easily could have ended up there. Also take note of, again, being Northern Main Junction, we have the very tall telegraph poles indicative of the Main Central. And also over here, we have this conveyor belt that goes across the Main Central main line, runs from one coaling tower to the other. So the Bangor and Aroostook could coal two locomotives, one on either side of the Main Central's main line. And in the background, we have the distinctive triple-story passenger station at the background. I do not know how many pictures of Bangor and Aroostook diesel and steam in the same place at the same time there are, but there can't be that many. This could be Oakfield, could be Millinocket. It's most likely Northern Main Junction, as that was where most of the heavy locomotive work was done at the time. But 330 is sharing shop space with the 501. The new kid on the block. Another thing to note on the front of the locomotives, EMD, actually, let me go backwards one. EMD placed the Bangor and Aroostook Keystone on the front nose, but when they did it with a round bottom, the round bottomed Keystone, not the traditional Keystone with the little notches in it that's more traditional from what we would think of as a Keystone. That indicates that this is an early photograph before those Keystones wore off and were repainted, as is this. And of course, as steam began to make itself felt, we have scenes like this outside Derby, most likely including a line of tenders. And actually quite sad. Speaking of steam engines, here's another early shot, slightly later than the rest, though. You'll note that the keystone on the front of 503 now has the little notches and the pine tree that we've come to associate with the Bangor and Aroostook keystone. But 503 and one of the 600s, the B units, are pulling this long line of Bangor and Aroostook steam out of Derby. So this is not long after their arrival. Speaking of the B units, the Bangor and Aroostook did have B units, not for very long, however. They were sold to the Pennsylvania Railroad. And if we look in this picture, we see that the Bangor and Aroostook has been painted over. See where it once was. And the numbers have been repainted. This, I believe, to be 9534-3, which I think, if I remember correctly, was one of the numbers that they had. To be fair, it could be 8534. The number is quite fuzzy in this print. But this is most likely to be Northern Main Junction, and these units have obviously been sold and prepped for interchange. My understanding is that they lived out the rest of their service life on the Pennsylvania. Bangor and Aroostook did, of course, have passenger power. This is one of the 2 E units that they purchased largely to haul the Potato Land Special and the Aroostook Flyer. This is number 700. And we know that this picture is before 1952. And we know that because it is a 3-digit number. More on that in a minute. As time has progressed, we are starting to see a little bit of difference here at Northern Main Junction. We've got a wood-sided refrigerator car still, but we've got the 40-foot steel-sided refrigerated cars. These, of course, would be the ones that we all have come to stereotypically associate with the B&A, the yellow ones with the, in later years, yellow ends. Open hatches indicating summer, of course. And if we look in the background, we find that although the canopy is still in extant, so this is still before passenger train service was let go, the conveyor belt between the 2 coaling towers has vanished. That would have been right through here. So this is sometime before 1960 and after these began to appear on the property, which they were new in 1952. So somewhere in there. This one we actually have a great deal of information on. This is 507 on May the 14th, 1948 in Derby, Maine. And this would be the passenger extra or passenger train, possibly from Greenville, although I wouldn't swear to it. And as we can see, in 1948, we still have the round bottom keystone. Okay. So we know that that lasted on that unit anyway into 1948. But look at the eclectic mix of passenger equipment. We have a REA baggage, express baggage in wood. We have a steel RPO car right there. And then on the extreme end, although it's hard to see around the Zoom meeting, we have some of those quote unquote American Flyer passenger cars that the B&A had. And 507, of course, would become renumbered and would become very famous for things I will discuss in a minute. Foreshadowing. Speaking of 507, here we are with the Shriner Special Train with our engineer, complete with a fez. And this has to be around the same time because we still have that round bottom keystone on the front nose. This one is believed to be circa 1951, 1952, and I'm going to discuss why that is in just a second. Here is 555, one of the Bangor and Aroostook's BL2s, in its as delivered and, more importantly, as numbered paint scheme from EMD. This is somewhere we believe to be Brownville Junction due to both the signals and those completely horrendous to use, trust me on that one, Canadian Pacific switch stands with a very short handle. You have to really yank on those things to get them to move. But 555 would have, of course, become 55 as would all of the locomotives in 1952, would begin to lose their 3-digit number. The reason for that was that in 1952, the Bangor and Aroostook would order GP9s. And when they did, they ordered them with a 2-digit number. So because of that, everything else had to be renumbered to suit, so that the class system would be maintained. So we believe this to be somewhere 51, 52. Speaking of which, this is a prior to 52 shot of the 800. This is one of the Bangor and Aroostook NW2s. And if we look in the background, we have a mixed bag of power and cars. We've got box cars from the C&O. We've got box cars from the Bangor and Aroostook. And of course, a whole string of reefers, along with those short tank cars that were so typical of the post-World War II era. And 800 would become number 20 in the renumbering in 1952. This may or may not be, but probably is Northern Main Junction in Herman. And speaking of Jeeps, inevitably, as the Bangor and Aroostook dieselized, they were buying GP7s. And this is the 571, which would become the 71 in the renumbering. An extra, single locomotive extra, coming somewhere. I would love to tell you that I know where this was, but unfortunately, a whole ton of Aroostook County looks very much like most of the rest of it. This was shot out of the nose of one of the F units, and they were in the siding waiting for this extra to come through. Again, pre-1952. In this post-1952, circa 1953 shot, we have the former Bangor and Aroostook 700, which became the 10, northbound for Holton. This is the Timony Road crossing in Oakfield, and again, believed to be either late fall of 52 or sometime after that. This would have been at that time still the main line, which would of course still been home to the Aroostook Flyer and the Potato Land Special. Wonderful shot here. I absolutely love this one. Based upon the tractors in it, we know that this is sometime in the middle or late 50s. This is a whole line of farmalls headed north at Northern Main Junction, being switched by one of the yard switchers. And I stagger to think what that collection would be worth today to the right farm implement collectors. That would be just a staggering find. Not to mention the NW2, of course, but, you know, I digress. After the renumbering, the 507 became the 47, and the F3s were repainted and overhauled, appearing in this two-tone gray and blue with a yellow stripe, and along with these crests. The yellow logo with blue lettering, I believe, would come into place instead of the red logo with white lettering. It was a design choice. 47 would wind up going down in infamy, so to speak, as the locomotive that became wrecked in, I want to say, 73 or something like that. Might have been 71. And became, through the donor of its shell, the 49, one of only two F3s that made it into the tricolor paint scheme of the Bangor and Aroostook. Need to stop here and speak briefly about the New Haven. And the New Haven had an entire class of these X1H cars built in 1953. And these are new to the property. They were done in a co-financed deal with the Bangor and Aroostook. So you will find occasionally models of the State of Maine products car with New Haven markings, and that is correct. They matched, as far as I know, in every respect, the same specifications as their equivalent Bangor and Aroostook counterparts. And we can't talk about the Bangor and Aroostook and the New Haven without bringing up this wonderful shot from Dyer Brook sometime in 1953 or 1954. This is a Ronald N. Johnson shot showing 0721 and two other of the New Haven DL 109s that were loaned or leased to the Bangor and Aroostook during the winter of 53-54. And this was due to a power shortage. They had gone ahead and gotten rid of a lot of their steam locomotives, but they had not yet taken delivery of sufficient diesels to cover the gap, and went out, and the DL 109s were available. This is, like I say, a wonderful shot. In addition to the DL 109s, we have a BL2 running a passenger extra and an inspection train, and this is again all in the tiny town of Dyer Brook, sometime in 53-54. Wonderful thing about the Bangor and Aroostook Marketing Archive is that we have all of these behind the scenes photos, the stuff that a lot of people never got to either see or never got to take pictures of, or weren't interested in. And in the annals of history, this is incredibly interesting. This is a shot probably in Horseback Pit outside Holton, Maine in the late 40s, showing a gasoline-powered shovel putting a load of dirt or gravel into that wonderful Studebaker dump truck. I'm a huge Studebaker fan. Yay, go Studebaker. And that particular type of Studebaker truck went out of production in the late 40s to be replaced by the next series, which I believe started in 1950 or 51. So that we, again, guessing that this is the late 1940s. Another one of those wonderful behind the scenes shots. This is the classic Bangor and Aroostook Troop sleeper. However, this is not the classic paint scheme that a lot of people have associated with it. It is the silver, not white, silver paint scheme with the stripes along the top and the red, white, and blue logo on the side. This is Northern Main Junction. We can tell that by both the coaling tower and the little tube over here to allow people to walk underneath the main central main line. This would be sometime, I forget when they made that purchase, but these were World War II surplus. So it would have been sometime late 40s would be my guess when this was made. Speaking of late 40s, early 50s, in case you were wondering how they did it, this is how the box cars and refrigerated cars were iced. And it literally involves a dump truck load of ice, a conveyor belt, and a bunch of guys with sticks of wood. That's it. That's how it was done. And I mean, it's just that crude. And these cars are just like a cooler. You open them up, you put ice in them, and they stay cold for a while. Interesting shot here from behind the scenes. Again, this is at Derby Shops. This was shot by the late, great Bruce Owen Nett, whose photographic work was featured in many Bangor and Aroostook publications, along with other places. This, we think, actually, my foot slipped and I misread it, and it was actually July 21st, 1950, when this was taken. Interestingly, he noted the date on the back of most of his prints. So we actually have a good date on this. And this is one of the Bangor and Aroostook's burro cranes loading scrap metal into a gondola headed somewhere. What possessed him to take this picture? I have no idea, but it's absolutely wonderful for that behind the scenes feel that most people never got a chance to shoot or bothered to shoot. Speaking of things that most people didn't get a chance to see, we have track work in progress. And as I recall, this or a related photo appeared in the original main line, and it was the new management of the railroad coming out to observe the track operations somewhere probably in the vicinity of Northern Main Junction, but I wouldn't swear that to that. So what we have on the right is the management and the folks working on the left. And what's interesting, of course, from a modern perspective is that there's absolutely no concession here to safety. There's no reflective vests. There's no hard hats. There's no safety goggles. There's gloves and good boots. And that's your safety equipment at this time in history. Wonderful behind the scenes shot. This is from the top of probably one of the plows looking back at one of the, not regulator. I was going to call it a regulator. Yeah, anyway, moving snow out of the way at Northern Main Junction. And the careful-eyed amongst you will note that 76 is wearing one of the first variations of the tricolor paint scheme, which makes this at least 1973.
Joey, that's a Jordan spreader that the 76 is working with.
Thank you. I couldn't come up with spreader. Jeez, I tell you. Yeah. This is why it's always important to have a Jerry Angier behind you. And of course, when you don't have a Jordan spreader and it's 1953, you do it with a burro crane and a gondola. And this is X397 in a shot by Alan A. Sharp, taken on February the 18th, 1953 in Caribou Yard. And they are literally using a shovel into a bucket into a gondola. What possessed him to take that shot? I have no idea, but it's a wonderful thing. Not entirely sure what's going on here. It looks suspiciously like a test to see if they could lift the boxcar with the crane. I'm not entirely sure. It looks a little too clean and not messy to be an actual accident, but I'm not really sure. This is one of the double door Bangor and Aroostook cars, and the tricolor logo fixes this to be, middle to late 70s at the earliest. Rolling back the clock a little bit, here is your classic state of Maine red, white, and blue refrigerated cars, and that is how they were cleaned, believe it or not. Guys with brushes and modified forklift or palleted load containing what looks like water and some other form of chemical. And this is most likely Northern Main Junction, given the water tank in the background. It's fairly distinctive. So that's how it was done. Guys with brushes. And believe it or not, that's still how a lot of track work is done to this day. One guy with a track jack and another guy sighting down the rail. There are more precise methods, but I can tell you that works. And this is one of the photos from a series on the section crew out of Holton, I believe, that appeared in the original Mainline magazine. And this, to me, is just awesome. This is wonderful. Full disclosure, between my father and I, we have a small fleet of ex-Bangor and Aroostook speeders. So to see a Fairmont speeder in use on the Bangor and Aroostook in a photo is amazing. My dad actually has one that is that exact same model with the headlight attachment that you can see dead center. That little box right there is to place a battery-powered headlight into. And he has one identical to that. It may be that very car. We don't know. There's also no numbers on the front of it, so it's impossible to identify. But talk about a behind-the-scenes photo. You've got 54 leading what looks like another F3 or an F3 and one of the 80 series GP38s. I forget which one had the horn on the engineer side roof. I think it was only one that had that, if I remember correctly, maybe two. But here we go. We've got the entire section gang in the hole, including the cook. I mean, come on. They don't go out anymore with, a box of groceries and a cook anymore. They go out now with high rail trucks and they come back and they go to McDonald's. But no, not in these days. They had a genuine cook car along for the ride. Wonderful photo. And of course, behind the scenes, we've got these guys out here in the middle. They brought those, Broncos, I think they put high rail gear on. So we're looking at early 60s. here. And just a wonderful behind the scenes photo that just shows the men at work. And speaking of men at work, we have a group either loading or unloading. It's kind of hard to tell. A ship at Searsport, Maine. This is, of course, off of the pier that the railroad owned. And speaking of loading, this is a load logging operation in Sheridan, Maine, likely to be 1948 or somewhere in that vicinity. We've got a lake behind us full of pulp wood, and this is a loading operation coming out of the lake and into the cars of Bangor and Aroostook. The small locomotive in the distance is one of Great Northern Paper's small gasoline, I think they were, kerosene powered switch engines. I love this one. This is just wonderful. I don't know where this is exactly. It could be somewhere in around Holton, but this is just awesome. Two guys, a piece of track equipment, and a crane, and that's all you need. Wonderful picture. Not a lot of people are aware of this outside of the community, that Bangor and Aroostook had the Avis car and truck rental for a franchise for a good chunk of the state of Maine. And this is one of the displays that I initially thought, in my grand ignorance when I bought this collection initially, I thought these were posters that somebody put up and had, in various places. Here's a marketing poster. Go put this up at the local convenience store. That's not what this is. This is actually a window display that is multiple feet tall that would have been used in one of the Bangor and Aroostook offices. Most of the time, the ones they had here in Bangor on Exchange Street, I think it was. Hammond? Yeah, I always forget that. But anyway, so this is one of their displays. So this was a physical 3D built model that was placed into the window. And then they had the good sense to photograph it so they would remember what they had done before. And this is another one of those displays. Be on the safe side, build your potato house trackside. Why not? Not only does it rhyme, it's wonderful. And of course, the bus service that ran on Greyhound services eventually, but initially on their own routes. They would take off a passenger train, put on a bus. And this particular display, as you can see, not in the most flattering of background locations, probably down somewhere near a furnace, is advertising the charter bus service, where you could charter a Bangor and Aroostook bus and go wherever it was that you wanted to go. And there was actually a wonderful article in the Mainline magazine, the original one, about a Boy Scout or Cub Scout troop that actually chartered a Bangor and Aroostook bus and went all the way to the Grand Canyon with it. So, interesting things you find in here. This is a letter dated December 20, 1976, received by the marketing department one day later. And this is a letter from a Mr. Edward F. DeVito from Torrington, Connecticut, asking about the possibility, or a response to his letter, asking about the possibility of getting a number plate or a builder's plate from a BL2. They denied the request, thanked him for his request, and also told him that despite what he may have heard, they were not actually replacing all of the switch keys, because apparently he also asked for a switch key. What's amazing to me about this is that somebody took the time to write back. They didn't just take the guy's letter and throw it in the nearest trash bin. And speaking of incredibly interesting, this is one of the standard plans that was produced by the Bangor and Aroostook, showing the GP38s. The plan date was updated as of 12/27/67. But what's really interesting is that if we get in here and we look close, we have notations about bring white stripe down to top of access plate, gray bottom, orange top, bring down to V on front, cab all orange, front, rear, sides, top, standard 20-inch numerals on cab, white. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the first paint chart for the first version of the tricolor paint scheme to appear on the GP38s. 26-inch orange stripe, 3-inch white stripe, standard Bangor and Aroostook, top black, etc. And this was found in the marketing department archives, as I say, scanned in, I think, 3 or 4 pieces and put back together digitally as you see it. Wonderful piece of history, because it, for those of us that model the Bangor and Aroostook, I don't think anybody's ever been able to definitively say how wide the stripes were in various places. Now we know. Speaking of Northern Main Junction, which is one of my favorite haunts, this is an absolutely wonderful photo for me for a couple of reasons. First of all, I am a night photography enthusiast. If for those of you that follow me on social media, you will find that I post an awful lot of night photos. This is a wonderful one. It's a time exposure. Sometime in the 70s would be my guess, over at Northern Main Junction. This is the farm, which is one portion of Northern Main Junction, known as the farm largely because there was a field there, and they took the field out to put in the rail yard and then let the grasses grow back in, so it still looked like a field. They called it the farm. This was the tower, such as it is, at the farm. They operated this portion of Northern Main Junction as a de facto hump yard by pulling cars up the hill that was there anyway and then letting them roll down and switching the switches. It was not officially a hump yard, but it was run and operated like one. And somebody from the marketing department had the forethought to go over there, set up a tripod, and fire up the shutter for these few shots. Keep in mind, again, this is the 60s, 70s, somewhere in there, and we're talking about a very long exposure to get this right. And because of my penchant for night photography, I absolutely love finding what must have been, I think it would be Mr. Sprague, Mr. Richard Sprague, the late Richard Sprague, who was the vice president or either the assistant vice president or vice president of marketing of the Bangor and Aroostook, depending on the year we're talking about. He was also the editor of the Mainline magazine, the original one. And he must have had a penchant for night photography because there are multiple images that are attributed to him in the archive, and showing this very early night work. And what's truly interesting to me about this is that there is no way that this is not staged. This has to be staged. And the reason for it is that the locomotive is perfectly still, which doesn't happen very often. And there's these electrical cords running through the snow, powering the lights and synchronizing the flashes. And the reason why staged I come up, because every now and again someone will tell me that one of the night photo scenes that I produce looks too fake. It doesn't look like a real railroad would have done that. Well, they did. See, they staged stuff too. So wonderful image here, and I just absolutely love it because, of course, the other thing is that every single light that can possibly be turned on has been turned on to provide enough illumination. And even the engineer has, of course, killed his night vision by turning on the cab light. And there's just no way in my mind that this is not staged, but it's a wonderful shot at Presque Isle of the 41, nevertheless. I spoke earlier of the legendary Bruce Owenett. This is one of his. This is in Bangor in 1982. The Bangor and Aroostook loaned the Main Central their 42 for a Operation Lifesaver train that ran all the way from Bangor, I believe, all the way to Portland for their Operation Lifesaver promotion. And Bruce Owenett snuck down to Bangor Yard and shot it the night before the trip. Rolling back the clock a bit, this is a wonderful night photo, circa 1960. This is an oak field. We can tell that by the coaling tower that was turned into an office tower. This is showing 54 in its two-tone paint scheme. And it's just marvelous to see that somebody took the time and effort to traipsy around through Oakfield and do time exposures back then. Makes me feel somewhat more confident about the ones I've taken lately. And another shot, this one is, of course, also at night at Northern Main Junction this time. And this is another one that I'm I'm almost certain has to be staged. I can't believe that anybody would be hooping up orders at this time in history when we've got a firecracker antenna, visible, and there's radio communications with the train. There's the antennas right there, and their radio equipped logo would be on the side of the locomotive. You can't see it, but I have a hard time believing somebody would be hooping up orders, and I have an even harder time believing that they would be doing so on a track that led directly to the main central, and also that they would be doing it with the headlight off. Seems a bit fishy. But nevertheless, this is a wonderful image that somebody could have very easily just kind of walked over almost from the corporate office and shot. Beautiful picture. This, however, was the first night photo that I found in the collection when I purchased it and began to scan it. This is 43 in Oakfield in the late 1950s or early 60s. And this is just phenomenally wonderful to me. Again, we've got a gentleman out in his long overcoat servicing the locomotives on the sand track. And it's just a great image. And it's such a great image that when Rick Foss asked me for images that he could color, that was the first one that I sent him. And I'll tell you, as spectacular as that is in black and white, it is just amazing in color. And what you are looking at is the very same image that you just saw in black and white, only digitally colored by Rick Foss, whose whose Facebook page is Memories in Color, and he has done a phenomenal job with that. And we're going to see his work 2 or 3 more times tonight. But that was the first one that he ever did for me of the Bangor and Aroostook, and did just an absolutely phenomenal job. And speaking of which, builder's photo found in the collection of State of Maine number 2000. This would be the builder's photo out of the McGraw Car Corporation. I mentioned the New Haven had a bunch of these. Well, this is the Bangor and Aroostook version. And there it is, as colored by Rick Foss. And there actually started a debate out of this. Were the ends black or were the ends blue? That has been an interesting debate that various modelers have said. And Rick, through his recoloring of this, believes that the ends were actually black. So that's how they appear. Speaking of cars, the marketing department had photos of just about every single car type that was available on the railroad, including the 200 series multi-doors. And these would have been provided to shippers and customers upon request. And the 104, one of the new mechanical refrigerated cars. And if you take a look down here for the photo historians, we have these blue drawn in lines and markings. That's indicating that the marketing department wants whoever develops this print to brighten up the trucks so that they would be more visible in the future printing. So I've left those marks on here for historical purposes, but as you can see, these were not just static photos left in a drawer. They were used for prints and for marketing materials. Speaking of which, if you've ever wanted to see the inside of a mechanical refrigerated car's refrigeration unit, now you can cross that off your list. This was a shot sent by a Pacific Car and Foundry, taken on June the 18th of 1970, inside of one of the brand new Bangor and Aroostook mechanical refrigerated cars. That's what they look like. And that's the car that they shot. That's 11206 Pacific Car and Foundry roster shot. And again, that's negative 13829-3. And this one was taken on August the 18th, 1970. Well, there you go. And again, car roster shots, we go from the new to the old. And this is the 10,000 series, built sometime in the 1920s, outside braced with a locking ice hatch style whatnot, probably used as I can't imagine them trying to get any kind of bulk commodity in and out of that door. This appears to have been a modification, probably done to hold the insulation in. These were... I really can't tell you the shot on this, although the date on it indicates that it was painted in May of 1958. So this would be one of the former red, white, and blue State of Maine products cars repainted into the all red with the large logo. Not sure where, but this is fresh out of the paint shop. So I would say very close to that May 1958 date. And speaking of cars, here's the 1000. This is Bangor and Aroostook 1000. This is one of the Paul Bunyan flat cars that they later converted to haul longer tree length wood rather than the pulp wood on the other side. I also added these spines to keep everything in place. But these were originally designed to haul pulp wood going the other direction, much shorter. And a couple of multi-door boxcars sitting somewhere. This might be outside Great Northern Paper, but I wouldn't swear to that. And this would be sometime in the late 60s, I do believe. And of course, we can't talk about the Bangor and Aroostook Railroad without talking about wood chip cars. Contrary to common belief, everybody remembers them as jade green with the large triangular Bangor and Aroostook logo. And that's true. That's how my O-gauge models are painted, and that is accurate. However, they were originally rebuilt or repainted with this paint scheme. It was the oxide red or boxcar brown, whatever you want to call it, and with the white lettering and no large triangular herald because that hadn't been done yet. So these are white letters, brown logo, and it appears to have been painted in 10 of 64. Restrictive service, interchange with Maine Central only. They did not let those go into just any old yard and on any old interchange service. These, however, wandered all over the countryside. These are the MDT yellow-sided reefers that were leased for long periods of time by the Bangor and Aroostook. And I believe it's one point they actually bought some of them. The cool part about this is that periodically you will find a sign, green with white lettering, that says, "When empty, return Bangor and Aroostook Railroad via service route." There's one in my living room. And those are authentic. And that is where they came from. And of course, the red, white, and blue boxcar era did not end with the State of Maine products with the horizontal stripes. They've got these vertical striped ones. These were purchased in the late 70s after the advent of the triangular herald. And this shot, I'm convinced that they could have found a place without telegraph lines in the way. But where this is exactly, I'm not sure. But the thing is that this has to be a staged publicity shot, because I can't conceive of any way or any reason why there would be just a lone boxcar with nothing around it, just sitting on the rail somewhere randomly that happens to have been, brand new and recently washed. So I'm pretty sure this was another staged publicity shot.
Joey, that might be North Twin Lake with Mount Chase in the background.
You're thinking on the East Mill branch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same thought. But it could, my other thought was that it might be somewhere in the Frankfort area, but then again, that wouldn't be right for the hills. So you may have that one, Jerry. You may. This one, however, is definitely outside Great Northern Paper. You can see it in the background. And these are the same cars or the same class. And this photo ran both in the original main line and my reborn main line, a part of the discussion on the red, white, and blue boxcars. Early 1960 shot of Presque Isle showing one of the BL2s, 56, switching piggyback cars. Knocked me over with a feather. BL2 switching piggybacks, and yet it happened. If I remember correctly, this appeared in Ron Johnson's book, From Pulpwood to Potatoes, or something. I think that's the title. And Jerry, did this appear in yours too? Oh, you're still muted. Don't.
No, it's not in my book.
It's not in yours. Okay, then it must.
Yeah, but notice the first trailer is the Maine Central trailer.
Main Central Trailer on the Bangor and Aroostook, right there. Yep. And also notice, just for the photo historians, that there's crop marks written in here in pen across the top of this. So if you've ever seen this shot before, most likely it was cropped off near the locomotive roof. And that's the only time I've seen it is cropped. So this may be the first time you've ever seen this not cropped. And Bangor and Aroostook management taking a look at boxcar 2534. Not 3,000% sure where this is, but they're loading some kind of bulk product. It could be potatoes, it could be grain. Not really sure what it is, honestly, but it's coming out of that chute and going into the boxcar door. One day I hope, by the way, as a side project, to digitize all of the original mainline magazines, and then I'll be able to go through and hopefully find the answers to a lot of these "what am I looking at" questions. This one, however, is quite easy to identify. This is before these were even shipped out at Pacific Car and Foundry, built in January of '52, which is incidentally is when my father was built. These are Pacific Car and Foundry builders photos of the new class of refrigerated boxcars. I'm not sure if these are B&A representatives or if these are folks that work for PCNF, but you'll note the date over here, packed, renumbered 1/14/52. So the bearings were packed and renumbered, and the second box hasn't even been filled in yet. So this hasn't even seen the rail. Speaking of the men, there's a great number of awards and award shots throughout the marketing department archive, because of course this was for the magazine sponsored by the railroad. And shots like this, I hope to one day identify everybody that's involved, including this, which is it looks like one of the track crews having a briefing. And this one, I don't remember the man's name, but I'm certain that this ran in one of the main lines. And my initial thought was 60s, but then I got looking at it, and there's a passenger train in the background. And I think that this is Caribou. And that is probably the middle to late 50s instead. And the reason why I say that is Caribou is one of the few brick stations. And it looks right for Caribou. Or am I losing my mind, Jerry?
No, you're okay. I would tend to agree with you that very well could be Caribou because of the brick station.
Yeah.
And where the train is probably looks to me like it's coming from Van Buren headed down to Bangor.
Probably the Potato Land Special or the Aroostook Flyer, depending on the time of day. So yeah. Again, I really want to get through all these and identify them. Wonderful shot here. Early to mid 60s. Number 80, the last GP9 they bought in the background. And this gentleman getting an award, perhaps, or commemoration of some type. Not really sure what's going on here. This one was awesome, however. A great find with the great picture and the explanation. The Mechanized Tie Gang on June 17th, 1982, installed 1,108 ties on the Fort Fairfield branch at Maple Grove, establishing a new record for 8 hours of tie installation. And there's the guys who did it. That is an awesome achievement. Trust me, having been on the wrong side of a tie with a pair of tie tongs, that isn't easy. And again, wonderful shot from behind the scenes, the men at work. I have to admit, for me, the most interesting picture, part of this is almost the car, and I'm wondering where that wound up. I'm guessing that one of us may have shaved with it. And back to that whole comment about Avis Rent-A-Car. These are a couple of the gentlemen that are running that particular program, and apparently they must have had something to do with Hertz as well. And wonderful, great shot for this behind the scenes kind of thing. And of course, note, we've got a cigar in the office. Try doing that today. You get strung up by a yard arm. And these are some more of these wonderful photos in the back shops. This is most likely to be Derby, and gentleman is stick welding onto one of the freight cars, and this is just awesome. Found this in the archive. There's sparks flying, everything's going nuts, and this is just a wonderful thing showing the behind the scenes of the men at work. Even when they look like they're about ready to go land on the moon, they're actually going in to clean the inside of a tank car. And I gotta say, that has got to be one hot, stuffy, kind of a job. I wouldn't want to try it. Wonderful shot here. As somebody who's tried to take a picture of this himself, I can tell you how hard it is to get an acetylene torch to show up properly in your photos. And here it is. Old school welding goggles, no face mask, welding gloves, and a torch. Forgive me, I've forgotten the man's name, but this was one of the station agents up north, and he had a wonderful penchant for painting using both oils and watercolors. And this was him doing an oil. This was written up in the main line, and it was part of the photo shoot. The interesting thing about this is that only, I think, 1, maybe 2 pictures appeared of him in the article. 6 or 8 were actually taken, and I have them all. So what you're seeing here is just a small fraction of the collection that survived. And yet another one for the jobs that Joey doesn't want category. The guy who gets to put his spikes on and climb up the pole. I'm good. I might do it with an extension ladder, but one of the few photos we have been able to identify, this is a gentleman by the name of Martin Grant. And as you can see from the crop marks, this was little more than a headshot as it appeared in the main line. But the full picture is quite interesting. We've got a 3 tracks wide here. Not sure where this is. It could be Van Buren, could be Brownville. Not really sure. But one of these days I'll get a chance to go through all those main lines and find out.
My guess is Brownville.
You think right along with the river on the right?
Exactly,
north?
3 tracks, because they did have a small yard there.
Yep. Still do. Still there. Yep. This one, however, this is Northern Main Junction. In the background, we've got the green tube to go underneath the Main Central's main line. And this is the CTC board and whatnot along, see right here, we've got the switches and the signals that go with them. And the dispatch and the agents and operators phone, keyboard, typewriter, and of course over here somewhere there's a sounder and whatnot, looks like, for the telegraph system. And this gentleman is, I'm assuming, getting an award or being congratulated on his retirement or something by the management. And once again, we've got a lit cigarette in the office. Try that again today. Wonderful safety award shot here right in front of the B&A RR Co safety board. We've got a whole, looks like a shop crew, whatnot. This very well could be Derby getting a award, and I'm sure that the gentlemen are named in the caption and the main line. As soon as I get a chance to find it, I'll modify my records. But this is just a wonderful behind the scenes shot. And of course, like any and all work pictures, 1 or 2 of the guys are smiling and 1 looks bored. And that's nice to know some things haven't changed. This is a wonderful shot of a gentleman by the name of John Swallow. He was the bridge and building foreman out of, I believe, Oakfield. And this is just this wonderful shot. You can see the man's experience in his face. You can see the man's humor and laugh lines, and it's a beautiful artistic picture. And in the background, they appear to be moving an entire building up on a skid with rollers. And we figured out that we believe this to be Fort Kent, with the old engine house in the background. And this is probably the freight house being moved in the foreground. Not certain of that, but it's a strong guess. And there it is, having been colored by Rick Foss. This one, right down to the green eraser on the top of his mechanical pencil. this image impressed me so much that this wound up on the cover of the summer 2019 issue of my Reborn mainline. Just an absolutely amazing cover. But perhaps my favorite shot of all of them, the behind the scenes, is this one of this gentleman whose name I've forgotten, lettering the 557, the American Railfan, in May of 1980 before its official debut. And he is, of course, lettering this by hand, which is just amazing. He's penciled it in and he's filling it in. And I couldn't do that with a computer and a decal printer. And here he is, this man's doing it by hand. And that's just amazing to me. Speaking of the 557, here it is from above on the in Northern Main Junction on one of the excursion runs, which, unless I am mistaken, was sponsored by the 470 Railroad Club. So I'm pretty sure that was the 470 drumhead on the back of that caboose. And here it is from the air, shot in 1980 by a L.W. Wright, who I assume must have had a plane or had a friend who did.
Joey, the 470 was very pleased to be able to sponsor a number of excursions over the Memorial Day weekend starting in 1980. And we got into the very early 1990s and covered everything, including going into St. Francis before they embargoed it.
Perfect. Well, hold that thought, because you're going to be able to see the next couple of images. You're going to be able to remind me of the year. So let's see here. This is, of course, Searsport from the air. And the wonderful thing about this, of course, is that today you just fly a drone over this and go, oh, look. Well, in the 1950s, 60s, whatever this was taken, you didn't just fly a drone over it. You hired a plane and you hired a photographer and you hoped that it worked. And in this case, it did. One of the other interesting shots, the truly remarkable thing is that the shots that aren't of trains specifically that the marketing department kept and retained, believe it or not, this is believed to be Interstate 95 being built. As we zoom in on it, you can clearly see 1, 2, a median, 3, 4 lanes of a highway somewhere in Northern Maine. Not sure where, but very interesting kind of anecdotal history shots that showed up in the collection as well. And speaking of Northern Maine, here we are in Presque Isle in the 1956, based upon the movie The Tea House of the August Moon, appearing at the Braden Theater. And for me, the highlight of this one, in addition to just the whole thing being just generally awesome, Studebaker Lark. So anyway, I've got that thing for Studebakers. Yeah. And of course, pulling the Bangor and Aroostook float with one of their fleet of company cars. Another wonderful behind the scenes, the community chest of the accounting department, raising a glass, it would seem, to toast the fact that they've raised $618.50. And I am sure that this appeared in one of the main lines, and I'll be able to identify everybody. This would be, I assume, shot inside of the railroad's headquarters building in Bangor before it was moved to the new location out in Herman. And of course, at the advent of the end of steam in July of 1959, the Bangor and Aroostook donated one of their steam locomotive bells to Camp Prentice and the Bangor YMCA. And of course, somebody went out there and shot a picture of one of the young campers giving the bell a ring. I would love to know what happened to that. And more behind the scenes, this is the arrival shot of the Potato Blossom Queen's private train in 1960, arriving at Northern Main Junction behind 79 for power. And this is just one of those great shots. You've never seen this without being cropped before. This is, if you look at all the crop marks, whatnot, the more familiar version of the shot is something like this. But there we are, the Bangor and Aroostook, with the grandkids and the kids, and what looks like somebody wearing Grampy's conductor's uniform. Whatnot up north. I would say that's probably late 40s, early 50s. And of course, the railroad brass went to school groups and talked about the railroad and answered questions from the youngins. Bangor and Aroostook was very, very conscious of its public image and did an awful lot to promote not only themselves, but Aroostook County, Maine, and they were very conscious about talking to the people, including shipping up an entire miniature, very large scale train to the expo outside of Montreal in, what was that, 67? I think it was 68, something like that. And interestingly, this large scale train still exists at the Booth Bay Railway Village, still in one piece.
67.
67, thank you. Not sure the date on this one, but it's a wonderful shot showing what appears to be either a school group or something. Might be. Oh, actually, I take that back. This is the 75th anniversary series. I've got a bunch of these pamphlets lying around. So this is 1966. Yeah, 1966. And I would guess that this is Northern Maine Junction, only because I've got some other pictures from what appears to be the same day. They opened the doors and let people come in and do tours for the 75th anniversary. And this would be somewhere in the vicinity of probably the mechanical refrigerator repair shop, would be my guess. But that's just a guess. Not sure what the story is on this one. Looks like it's before the end of passenger service, which puts it around 1960, late 50s, 1960, and not sure what's going on. Looks like an entire group that went somewhere. Really want to find the backstory on that one. This one, however, I think is probably fairly recognizable. And Jerry, you're going to have to remind me, was this the 470 Club or was this the Down East Railroad Club that sponsored this one? This is the infamous gondola excursions.
I don't know. It was before my time. It's Mosquito Mountain and the pit goes off to the left, but I can't tell you who sponsored it.
Mm-hmm. Well, for those that aren't aware, this was an entire trainload of gondolas, open gondolas with folding chairs that people sat on with tables and cabooses spaced along to provide bathroom facilities and easy access to the gondolas. And that was how the excursions was run. In addition, they took the whole consist down the Main Central after they got off in Bangor or Herman, Northern Maine Junction, most likely. They parked the train. Everybody went to the hotel. The Main Central got the whole consist onto a train and got it to Burnham Junction. The Belfast and Moosehead Lake came up and got it. They ran the whole consist up and down the the Belfast and Moosehead Lake the next day. Wonderful little cross railroad sort of cooperation there. Back to the 75th anniversary. This is something you can't do today. Put a bullhorn towards a bunch of kids and yell at them. I don't think he's actually yelling. But this is the 1966 75th anniversary train, and we've got one of the refrigerated boxcars filled with boxes full of French fried potatoes, all showcasing the products of Northern Maine. And there is the whole train. This is a shot believed to be somewhere in the vicinity of Oakfield or Dyer Brook, if I remember right. They did a promotional shoot out here, and everything from the 81 on the nose all the way to the buggy on the back is spit and polish. And there is one type of every type of freight car that they had, including a trailer on flat car trailer. back there, along with their coal hoppers, their covered hoppers, tank cars, and everything in between, including one of the chip cars. And this was the 75th anniversary train that ran all over the system. Before that could happen, of course, they had to buy the 81 and the 82. This shot is believed to be from March of '66 when these units arrived. And there's not a scratch on them. There's not even hardly any road dirt on the brake rigging of these things. And this is, again, believed to be Northern Main Junction. And if I remember correctly, this photo did run in the original main line, and the gentlemen were identified at the time. However, sometime after '66, the 81 was involved in some sort of an incident. What incident it was, not sure, but it was pretty bad. The rear is stove up, the side is stove up, the front was stove up. Even the number board on the other side is popped out of its frame, and the whole area has been dented in. This is believed to be Northern Main Junction, and there's a whole series of these photos from just about every conceivable angle that one would want. And the assumption that I've made is that they probably shot these for insurance purposes and that they were making a claim on the 81. This one, I think, Jerry, might be one of yours.
No, not mine.
No,
I like it's down at Searsport, obviously, but it's not mine.
Really, because it actually has your name on the back of it.
Well, some of those pictures that I used when I was doing the books together floated around, and it said return to. So that's all I can tell you on that one, Joey.
Okay. Well, it's got your name on it, so I've always assumed it was yours, but this is a wonderful shot showing one of the MDT reefers and the Gudvor at Searsport, of course. So.
It could be a different Jerry.
No, it says Angier on it, not Jerry. Yeah. And speaking of behind the scenes in cars, here's a couple of the International Paper Company cars loaded with pulp. Loaded with peeled spruce and fir. This is confusing. There's two locations written on the print. One is St. Francis, and one is Chisholm. And I think that this is actually St. Francis, and the cars were loaded at Chisholm. I think. Not sure. But in either case, it was March 1st, 1952, that this picture was taken. When the Sears and Roebuck Company said they were going to have a train load sale, they meant they were going to have a train load sale. And this was in Presque Isle in the 50s. And they literally rolled in with an entire train load of red, white, and blue State of Maine products boxcars with nothing but Sears train load sale items on it. And they borrowed a track in Presque Isle and brought everybody over, and they sold stuff right out of boxcars. And of course, the railroad equipped them with Ship B&A hats because for the occasion. Much later in the history of the Bangor and Aroostook, we have Penobscot Frozen Foods out of Belfast backing up to one of the double-door boxcars. This is probably in Searsport. They actually had a transload that they were doing for a while there, where they used one of the double doors as a ramp to get back and forth, or a loading dock, more accurately. So. And of course, back in the old days, they did it the hard way with a pallet jack and two guys pushing on a pallet. Not actually sure what this is. It looks to me like plywood, but I'm almost certain that's not it. But this, however, is a transformer for Great Northern Paper in April of 1953 being delivered. With the freshly renumbered 56, we can see how the paint has been cleaned there, and the number has been changed from 556 to 56. There's the transformer. The rest of it, of course, is just the crane to bring it in and set it where it needs to go. And speaking of cars, here is an entire car, a hopper car, being offloaded all at once with a rotary dumper. And this is, I want to say this is sugar beets coming in, but I could be wrong. Wonderful shot of a special led also by 56 in Derby. This is actually, I'm not sure if they're on the Maine or if they're on the Greenville branch. I'd say probably the Greenville branch would be my guess, but I wouldn't swear to that. But this is a director's special, complete with the heater car for steam heat. And a much later shot of the director's special in 1968 with the 44, one of the 3 F units that still exists, by the way, along with heater car H1, which is a converted troop sleeper, and the 200, which is or was a dynamometer car at one point. And of course, after you're done inspecting the railroad, what do you want to do? Go back to your private camp and relax for the day. And somebody bought a caboose and turned it into a camp. Pretty sure these also ran in the main line, so I'm hoping to be able to identify it, but it loses a little bit when you've got a deck off the back. Just my opinion. I don't know. Milepost 12, Prospect, Maine, circa 1965. We've got the blue dip paint scheme on 79 with some State of Maine products cars. And this is just a little too good and a little bit too sharp to be a moving photo. So I have a feeling the marketing department went out and said, hey, we need a picture of a locomotive and some good looking boxcars. Where can you guys stop easy? And this is probably what was being done here. And speaking of locomotives, the shops at Northern Maine Junctions were so highly regarded that when the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western wanted to do some power swapping with the Delaware and Hudson, they actually shipped their ST45s up to Northern Maine Junction to have them rewired. This was in 1973. And again, is at Northern Maine Junction. And one of the things I just noticed when I was putting this slideshow together is that there's 2 really, really unfortunate guys up here on the top of the water tower working. And oh, goodness gracious. I mean, you couldn't pay me enough to be up that high. But anyway. And speaking of interesting motive power, there's the Morrison-Knudsen 5001, powered by its Sulzer diesel on the line for its testing phase. Wayne Duplessis wrote up the report on that. He gave it a very favorable mark. The railroad, however, elected not to buy any, neither did anybody else. The locomotive actually is in New Jersey now. The Morristown in Erie owns it, or owned it at one point, and it has an EMD back in it now. And another shot as we come north on the wonderful Prospect Trestle. And we are winding it down here, folks. I realize I'm a bit over on my hour. Let's see here. When Richard Sprague, the vice president of marketing for the railroad, wanted to run a safety campaign, he needed somebody that was injured visibly that he could get near the tracks and take a picture. He found his son. This is young Mr. Sprague. And the injury was sustained while skiing. It had nothing to do with railroad safety at all. He was not an employee of the railroad. He was not injured anywhere near the railroad, but that didn't matter. We had a guy on crutches with a cast near a train, and that was the crux of the safety speech that was run. And this was in March of 1968. So, yeah. And speaking, as I did of my penchant for loving night photography, this is one of those wonderful shots. This was done, I presume, to promote the passenger service. However, getting back to that comment that people have made about my photos looking too fake or whatever, take a real close look at this. And I mean real close. First of all, who holds their lantern like that? Kind of a cockamamie angle. Second, why would you be staring at the guy with the camera? But here's the big giveaway that this is pretty much a trumped up photo. There's an electrical cord running out of the bottom of the lantern over the gentleman's shoulder, which means that there's an electric light bulb inside of the brakeman's lantern. And somebody did that, I presume, because they couldn't get enough light out of a normal lantern to show up at night. But it's a wonderful photo nonetheless. And it makes me feel a little bit better about my rechargeable battery-operated lanterns that I use for night photography. One other quick shot. This, the companion shot to this appeared on the front cover of the original Mainline, and I think it was 1976, if I remember right, or no, 84, I think. And it appeared on the cover of my Reborn Mainline magazine in the same issue, exactly. No, it would have been 82. So exactly 40 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later. And this is a wonderful classic shot that the Bangor and Aroostook used for a lot of years for marketing purposes. If you'd seen any marketing materials of B&A, you probably saw this shot or one of its variants. This wonderful shot showing locomotives southbound along the Aroostook River up in the northern part. This is coming south out of Fort Kent. And this beautiful long string of B&A yellow reefers leading off into the distance, and State of Maine products, red, white, and blue boxcars on the front. This is just an awesome picture. And what's even more amazing is that this is not a print. This is not a slide. This is a full-size transparency that is in my collection and has been scanned in two pieces, digitally placed back together, and is the image of what you see. So this has been scanned at an extremely high resolution and can be made available into any size print basically required. And I'm going to leave you with one final image. This literally took my breath away. This is a night photo in Oakfield, Maine, of the engine terminal in the early 60s. This appeared on the cover of Mainline magazine, the original Mainline magazine, in black and white because they couldn't reproduce color affordably at the time. But this is a genuine color night photo of Oakfield, Maine in the early 1960s. This is, as far as I know, the only copy of this that exists. It is another full-size transparency. It has been scanned at a truly eye-popping resolution. And even this low-res copy, we can go in and we can even count the number of reflective dots inside the 54. And we can even see the ghostly image of a conductor or hostler or someone that is half there on the fuel track this night in Oakfield. And that image will appear on the cover of a new Reborn Mainline magazine at some point, and it will be on the anniversary that it appeared in black and white some decades later. And that, gentlemen and ladies, is the Bangor and Aroostook that I never saw.
Joey, thank you very much. Open up for everybody who's got any questions or comments.
Joey, this is Jerry. You've done a fantastic job. I had a great evening sharing these pictures with you. And thank you very much for the time and effort you did to make this happen. Great show.
Oh, thank you very much. We're still in the midst, of course, of the preservation effort. I've got literally a box full of negatives sitting here, medium format, 35 millimeter, various sizes. They're all being scanned. So you never know. There might be enough to do a redux at some point.
Joey, that was just a wonderful presentation. Those vintage photographs were really something, just fascinating to see all that old history there. My wife is holding off on cooking dinner, so I got to run. But Alan and I have a little bit of a tradition of asking for each other for contact information on the presenter. And so I'm going to turn it around and ask Alan to send me your contact information, Joey. In case you don't know me, I'm president of the Mass Bay RRE, and we do Zoom programs on the third Thursday of the month. And we're looking for stuff for next year. And I know there'll be a few people on this one for whom it would be an overlap, but we'd love to have you, they give you a few months to finish going through the rest of that collection and digitizing it. And you can come back and we'd love to have you do one for us sometime next year.
Well, definitely, Alan, send over my my information. It's you can also find me through the Mainline Magazine webpage and whatnot. Joey at joeykelleyphoto.com will find me. But of course, you have to spell Kelley correctly, which is not always easy for some people.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know whether you were monitoring looking at the chat, but I did look up. You had the photograph of that gentleman in front of the station, and and it is indeed Caribou.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so. Yeah. There's only a handful of iron of brick stations, and that might be the only one that survives. I think
the pictures I found of that one, it was all boarded up, but that's as far as I went with it. So. Anyway, I'm gonna go down and help my wife get dinner on a table. So thank you so much. It was a great presentation.
Not at all, and I have a cold burrito from the Mexican restaurant waiting for me too. So I feel your pain.
Very good. My wife put more effort into it than that, so I better get downstairs.
Yeah, good call.
Night, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, Joy.
Yes.
This is Lloyd Neal.
Hello, Lloyd.
I was 9 years old, and I accompanied my uncle on July 18th and 19th in 1952 on what they call the Aroostook Safari. And I believe that was put on by the 470 Club.
Okay.
Okay, and that was a 2-day thing. I remember that we got on the train, we got on the Gull in Portland, in the middle of the night. Got into, we got at Northern Main Junction. We then left at 4:30 I think it was on the 19th, at 4:30 a.m. I think it was the Potato Land. We went all the way to Van Buren.
Yep.
And at Van Buren, the railroad, in conjunction with the excursion, they had BL2 554. It was a mixed train, and they put on a one of the modern BAR passenger coaches. We rode on a mixed train to Fort Kent. And at Fort Kent, we then spent a couple of hours, and we took I remember the train went from, it was a daily train, I think it was number 22, and it went from Fort Kent to Oakfield.
Yeah.
And I remember that F3507 was on the point.
No kidding.
And then we waited for about a couple of hours, and we got on the southbound. I don't think it was I can't remember if it was the Potato. I don't think it was the Potato. I think it was the Aroostook Flyer. And we took that back to Bangor.
That would have been about right. Yeah, you did what the railroad never did, which was to have the loop, so to speak. I've constantly wondered why they didn't run some sort of just even a 2-day or 1-day trip where you left Oakfield and you returned to Oakfield. It could have been done.
It was a very long day, but my uncle took at least probably 100+ pictures, and I still have the negatives on that.
Oh, ho, 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 ho. You would make me a very happy man if
great photos of the stop at Fort Kent, Van Buren, Presque Isle, Bangor. I remember at Bangor, before he caught the train to go to Van Buren, we walked through the yard, and at that time they had a lot of F units, the 500 series. And he took pictures of 500 and 505. And he also, I remember the 482, 102 was there. I think it was the last steam engine. They were using it for ice melting, I think, at that point. And it was a very memorable trip.
Lloyd, that trip was sponsored by the predecessor of Mass Bay RE. One of the principals was Lawson Hill.
Oh, okay.
The 470 did not sponsor that trip. It was the Boston pre-RRE group.
Huh. Is there any way, Lloyd, that you happen to have those negatives digitized, and would you be willing to write that up for me?
I've already digitized some of them. I can make prints here where I live.
Well, I would need the digital ones to put them in the magazine anyway.
Okay. I'm not sure. I have them on CD discs.
Mhm.
Okay, but I don't have all of them. I'm still, my uncle took thousands of pictures in 47 and 48 all over the country. And I'm digitizing them. I've been doing that for 3 years now. Still got a hell of a long ways to go.
Oh yeah, you'll be a long time. Trust me, I'm well aware. Took me 6 weeks to do
not
21.
live long enough to put.
Oh, took me 6 weeks to digitize 2100 35 millimeter slides, and that was working, fairly quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if even a write up without the photos, I would be wonderful, because I can
Okay.
probably put in placeholders.
And my father also took pictures in the 60s in Searsport a lot.
Ooh, that would be wonderful to have as well.
So what is your website, so I can maybe
The Mainline magazine is available at Mainline Magazine,
okay.
all spelled out, MAINE.
Okay, I can get it on the website, on the Google search, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And my contact info is right on there. There's a form, but if you go into each individual issue, there's my email addresses in there as
Yeah.
well.
Because my uncle also took pictures of, I call them antique passenger cars.
Mhm.
A lot of the trip at in 1952 was in, I don't know, 1900, 1920 type
Mhm.
coaches, and he took pictures inside the coach as well. So, and he took pictures of all kinds of wood pulp cars and God knows what.
Wow.
I'll give you his email, Lloyd.
Okay, yeah, because I don't. Yeah, that would be fine, because I have digitized some of them, but I got a long ways to go.
Yeah, that's one of those projects that just, no matter how long you think it's going to take longer.
But the negatives are crystal, it was 35 millimeter, did a Leica camera, and they come out very good.
Yeah, those Leicas always had a good reputation. I'm a digital person myself, so I have no personal experience. But yeah, they talked about those almost as highly regarded as the medium formats on the 4x5s.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, anyways, it was a great presentation, brought back to memories. I remember when I was 9 years old.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment. And any material, I take any and all material. But I'm particularly love to have firsthand accounts from people that did something on the Bangor and Aroostook, because that's the kind of thing that I specifically wanted to get into the magazine, because frankly, we're not, none of us is getting any younger, and the people that really had those firsthand experiences, too many of them have passed on to the great rail yard in the sky. And it is to my regret that I didn't get started maybe 5 or 10 years earlier, because I could have done 4 or 5 hours with Wayne Duplessis and never duplicated a single railroad story. And I wish I had, but oh well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That MKT car, was that a milk car?
The MDTs?
MKT?
MDT, merchants, something or other transport. Those were for potatoes and any other refrigerated product. That wasn't necessarily milk. Yep.
Okay, because it looked like a milk car in one of my line-out cars I got.
Yeah, it would, but yes, it was a refrigerated box car, and I think they wound up buying a bunch of them after they leased them for a while.
Merchants Dispatch, I'm pretty sure.
That was it. Merchants Dispatch. Yes.
Did you know Forrest Bunker?
Of him, not personally.
I knew him for the last 5 years or so of his life, and he took me and a few other people on some trips around the Bangor and Aroostook. I don't know whether you'd be interested in any of those pictures or not, but
Absolutely.
they were probably nothing that anybody could have taken.
Well, the interesting thing about a lot of this stuff from the marketing department and others, the stuff that is so surprising to me is it's not the locomotives and the cars and whatnot that really stand out to me. It's the behind the scenes of the people working, because frankly, no disrespect to anyone, many people have shot the Bangor and Aroostook's locomotives and cars over the years, but very few had either the opportunity or the ability, financially or otherwise, to shoot the Presque Isle Station, for instance, or the Mars Hill Station, particularly in 1900. You know, that's just the sort of thing that just was not available to most people. And that's what's so incredible to me about this collection, and why I feel so honored to have it, is that I'm able to show these things to these people and be able to say confidently, this is probably the only time you'll see this picture. No. But anyway, I take anything in terms of submissions of material. Very little of it has had to been reworked over the 5 or so years I've been doing this. But you know, I mean, as long as you're willing to have your stuff spell checked, I'm more than willing to print things, photos too.
A little thing that's Bangor and Aroostook related is that our 470 Railroad Club has 2 rolling stock of the Bangor and Aroostook. We have the
Yes.
State of Maine Potatoes car, the 2573.
Products.
Yep, products. Thank you for correcting me. And refrigerator car 7764.
Yep. I took a
65.
picture of those on the photo freight at Conway Scenic. I turned it into a sepia black and white image, and I sent it out to the Bangor and Aroostook group, and I said, where was this on the Bangor and Aroostook?
Making it
Nobody
look like
got it.
making it look like it was an oldies style photo.
Yeah. And not a single person got it. Eventually it came out about 2 days later that somebody said, wait a minute, those are the two. Wait a minute, those are the two that are at hey. And they figured it out about 2 days later. So yeah, I had my little fun for 2 days.
Well, we're glad that we have our 2 Bangor and Aroostook cars in good hands by our club.
Mm-hmm.
And we happen to cosmetically restore them to make them look good as new every time. We just had the refrigerator car cosmetically restored 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Didn't realize it had been that loose, that recent. And the red, white, and blue one, yeah, I can't remember. Are the ends painted blue on that, or are they painted black?
Ours was painted with blue on the ends.
Okay, because that seems to be the debate. Is it blue or is it black? And I'm not sure. I'm wondering if it may have been originally one way and then repainted later. I don't know.
It's all a mystery, Joey.
Mm.
It's all a mystery.
Mm-hmm. Much like a lot of things.
Joey?
Yes.
In 1958, when they were about to discontinue passenger service.
Yep.
I made an effort to take pictures of every point that was a passenger stop on the Main Central and the Bangor and Aroostook. I did not get to Van Buren. That's about the only one I missed because I ran out of daylight before I got up to the end of the line.
Yep. Yep.
Would you be interested in any of that stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All I have is 35 millimeter slides. I've got no way to digitize them. I could maybe get them to you somehow.
Alan, can you put Leonard and I together in some form, and we'll see what we can do there. Believe it or not, I can bring my scanner to you, depending on how many we're talking about here, and it could get that done in a day.
You want Lenny's email, Joey?
Yes, please, if you would.
I can do that too.
Thank you.
Now, one more question.
Mhm.
I went to the Coles Express in Bangor a few years ago with my dad and son, they got a engine in there.
Mhm.
F57, I believe. Is that something?
557. Yep.
What was that engine used for in its heyday?
That was one of the Bangor and Aroostook BL2s. It's the only one that remains in the state of Maine. The other three, excuse me, that survive. One is in Pennsylvania. The other two are now in Indiana. And that would have been used for either freight or passenger service. That was the one that was retro painted in 1980 into its original number, lettered the American Rail fan, and subsequently done. Now, that particular unit is very important to me, being again the first BL2 that I ever had a model of, and it's been very big for me. And if I'm digging through a picture here, and if I can swear you all to secrecy, and I mean it.
Are those other three running that you talked about?
2 out of 3 technically run.
Okay.
Technically, the third one is listed as operational, but isn't at the moment. So for my 35th birthday, I did a reverse birthday present. I paid for a photo shoot of myself in front of the 557. Now, here's what you need to know. 1, they do not do this at that museum. They do not do this. We had to move a bench that was like an act of Congress. They were not happy about it, and they swore me to secrecy that I would never share these pictures with anyone. So you all did not see these. These do not exist. No. Okay. Mental blocks. All right. But I went in and I did a retro photo shoot of myself in front of this. I had somebody else come in and do the pictures. And then, of course, when we black and whited it, it looks so ridiculously period to me. Again, 1980, given the American Railfan lettering and such, that I put this on a fake mainline magazine cover. Like built a magazine cover like, you know, kids do with like the baseball players and whatnot when you're in Little League and whatever, you build a fake baseball card. Well, I did the same thing with a fake mainline magazine cover and showed it to a couple of people. And that was what started my reborn mainline magazine. Because somebody said, well, you know, you really ought to do that. Do what? Do new issues of the main line. Oh, and that's how it started. You all didn't see that.
We won't tell. We'll keep it secret
You what?
because we didn't see it.
As it appears on the blog for everyone to see. They've also had a change in management over there. The new management is much less, they don't seem to be as stuck on things like that. They're now having special events at the museum and whatnot. They're much more, they seem to be much more proactive about that kind of thing. So I'm not worried about it. No.
I have another tidbit of information that might be of interest. I'm a member of a website called trainorders.com.
Yes.
Out of California. I've done it for many years.
Mhm.
And about 6 months ago, I happened to be watching the live horseshoe curve photo.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, there was a state of Maine, you know, red, white, and blue boxcar with heavy graffiti.
Mhm.
On an eastbound train, and that car had to be at least 60 years old plus.
Are you sure that it wasn't the former Montreal, Maine, and Atlantic #1?
No, I'm going to see if I can find it. I can find it, and
Okay.
I didn't believe it myself. I actually took a photo of that on my printer. And it said state of Maine, and if you read behind the graffiti, you can see the word products on the bottom.
Well, the reason why I asked was the Montreal, Maine, and Atlantic did a state of Maine products in red, white, and blue.
Okay.
They did.
Okay,
And-
yeah,
and-
I thought, boy, it was almost a duplicate of what you showed tonight.
It really was. They intentionally did that. I wrote that up
Oh,
in
okay, that
one of
might
my
be
main
it.
one of my mainline magazine issues. Hang on a second. Let me pull that up. Rail MMA. Let's see. Ba, 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 ba. January 6th, 2004, they had it done, and that was what it looked like.
Okay,
And that is a 50-foot boxcar that was actually ex Rock Island via the CNNW and UP. Believe it or not. And they repainted a bunch of them. But this was the first one in the number series. So they made it MMA number 1. And there it is, fresh out of the paint shop. And I have to admit, the MMA management was not happy with me because I broke this on the internet 24 hours before they had a chance to announce it to the world. Oops. Didn't know. But yeah, there she is. Yep. So the reason why I ask is that that's probably what you saw, only because that's the newest one. And to my knowledge, with the exception of the 25, Colin, help me out, 2573.
2573, yes.
Yep. And the other one's the 7000 series, but
The 7765.
Right. Okay. So the 2573, those the red, white, and blue. To my knowledge, that's the only one of those that still exists on any kind of active rail. There might be a red, white, and blue one somewhere that's being used as a shed or something, but as far as I know, all of the rest of those have been are scrapped.
if I
Oh,
can.
we are lucky to have that one.
If I can
Yes.
find the picture, I'll send it to you.
Please do. Please do. I'd be interested to see it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was number 1. Yep. Yep. Any other questions? The silence is deafening.
Well, I will say, Joey, I think I know for myself, I've got a 8-year-old who's screaming at me to put her to bed. So I want to thank you on behalf of the club to presenting for us tonight. I really enjoyed the show. Not being native, a lot of this was, well, and continues to be new to me. So I want to thank you for presenting to us tonight, and hope all the rest of you enjoyed the show as much as I did, and I hope you all have a great night.
Okay.
Thank you, Joey.
Thank you all. Nice to
I
see
am
you.
very impressed.
Thank you, Joey.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Joey.